Turkey's energy transition, milestones and challenges. Turkey's average GDP growth rate in the last 40 years is 4.3%. In line with the growing economy, the Turkish electricity market is one of the fastest growing markets throughout the world. The annual average consumption increase was 8.3% in electricity in the last 40 years. In the 70s, the main priority was electrification. After establishing Turkish Electricity Authority, or TEK, and consolidating all the electricity activities under this utility in 1970, the partially interconnected, fragmented transmission system had substantially developed, and a countrywide, strongly meshed transmission grid was built since then. In order to support economic growth and to cope with electricity demand increase, substantial investments were necessary also in generation and distribution segments of the electric industry. Therefore, different models for the electricity sector structure have been on the agenda since the late 1960s. In the last 40 years, the generation capacity of Turkey increased more than 30-fold, and the capacity reached 70,000 megawatts in March 2015. The composition of ownership of the generation capacity changed drastically during this period. Development in generation capacity according to ownership. Due to weak legal and regulatory framework, lack of consensus, and an unstable political environment, private sector participation, PSP, in 1984 to 2001 was limited, and the investments were not sufficient to cope with the demand increase. A total of about 11,000 megawatts by private investors, and still mostly by the public sector, was commissioned under the legal framework introduced in this period. After the 2001 electricity market law, the structure of the electricity sector was completely changed. However, until 2007 to 2008, the progress was slow. Lacking of effective trading means, lack of cost-reflecting pricing policies, delays in privatizations were the main reasons for this slow progress, and therefore only about 5,000 megawatts of new capacity were added to the system. This insufficient investment level had created supply security concerns, and the reserve margin was decreased to a critical level. After introduction of trading platforms such as PUMAM in 2006, cost-reflective pricing in 2008, and implementing day-ahead and balancing markets in 2009 and 2011. Eligibility limit decreased, market openness reached to 85%, and number of eligible consumers substantially increased. Private sector generation investments increased. The installed power of new power plants realized by private sector is roughly 31,000 megawatts in 12 years. Private investment gained pace after 2007, and 88% of this capacity is realized in 2007 to 2014. Unlike previous attempts for distribution privatization in the late 90s, the privatization of distribution system was successful, and all distribution regions have been privatized in 5 years, between 2008 and 2013. The regulatory framework for renewables and development of electricity market facilitated generation investment, and there has been a substantial growth in generation capacity based on renewable resources. A new electricity and gas market operator, EPİAŞ, is being established. EPİAŞ will take over PUMAM from TEAŞ and operate the forthcoming gas trading platform. 97 electricity and gas market participants will hold 36% of EPİAŞ shares. Turkey's stock exchange, Borsa Istanbul, will hold 34%, and TEAŞ the remaining 30%. In sharp contrast to electricity, progress in the development of the natural gas market has been markedly slow, as the government chose to proceed cautiously with several key aspects of gas market reform envisioned in the 2001 Natural Gas Market Law. Price reform is an essential part of successful energy reform, where prices are below cost recovery levels and government ability to provide subsidies is limited. Being more than almost 50% gas in electricity generation, any price decision and cross-subsidization in natural gas in gas sector inevitably influence competitiveness of the electricity market. Prices and affordability. The government's primary economic concern is the impact of energy price increases on the economy through inflation and competitiveness of Turkish industries. On the other hand, cost recovery pricing is a must for the development of energy markets. Increasing prices may be a problem, especially for low-income consumers. Instead of keeping tariffs low for all consumers, a transparent subsidy mechanism targeting vulnerable consumers could be considered. Supply security. Due to hydro-renewable and thermal generation capacity mix, Turkey's capacity margin should be more than 35% for a reliable system operation as a result of massive generation investments and developments in renewable energy capacity. The capacity margin has reached roughly 70%. The secret of Turkey's success in reform implementation is the three-way collaboration and risk-taking between successive governments, public institutions, and state-owned energy companies, and Turkish investors, and they're mostly Turkish financiers. Past success helps and shows the way forward, but it does not guarantee future success. A package of 5 broad measures would advance the development of the gas market. Facilitating gas imports by the private sector, restructuring Turkish national gas company BOTAŞ, eliminating cross-subsidies in wholesale gas prices charged by BOTAŞ, developing a centralized gas trading platform, and mandating BOTAŞ to progressively trade its gas through the platform, and reducing network bottlenecks and increasing storage capacity. A package of 4 broad measures would advance the development of the electricity market, reform of the natural gas market, the development of financial instruments for trading and risk management, operational and financial strengthening of Turkish transmission system operator TEAŞ, and transparency about Turkish energy market regulatory authority, EMRA decisions, TEAŞ congestion management, Turkish Electricity Trading and Contracting Company, TETAŞ, and Turkish Electricity Generation Company, EOAŞ, market operations and the government's operational and financial goals for TETAŞ and EOAŞ. Energy regulator EMRA is an autonomous public institution in line with international best practice arrangements. Yet there is a perception that EMRA's autonomy is declining. BOTAŞ, EOAŞ, TEAŞ, and TETAŞ should continue their development into modern, autonomous, and professionally run state-owned enterprises, SOEs. OECD's guidelines serve as a global benchmark for governments on SOE reform. Stock market listing of the state's energy companies through public offering of their shares on Borsa Istanbul would support their corporate governance and the development of Turkish capital market. The environmental impact assessment and project clearance process has at times been overwhelmed by the number of applications. Developers, environmentalists, and ordinary citizens all agree that there is need for more transparency in the process and the justification of decisions, whether approvals or rejections. And, finally, securing public support for energy reforms and investments requires information sharing, education, consultation, engagement, transparency, continuously, relentlessly, with no exceptions. Otherwise, continued public support will be undermined.